Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. My name is Simos Zenios, and I am the Associate Director of the UCLA Stavros Niarchos Foundation Center for the Study of Hellenic Culture and the Stavros Niarchos Foundation and Ioannis P. and Irini Kalogeras Lecturer in Modern Greek Language and Culture. I am delighted to welcome you to this celebration of International Greek Language Day. The event is co-sponsored by the Embassy of Greece in the United States and the Consulate General of Greece in Los Angeles. It truly is a privilege and a joy to collaborate with these institutions while pursuing our common goal, to promote, celebrate, and reflect on Greek language, culture, history, and heritage. I want to thank and acknowledge Her Excellency, Alexandra Papadopoulou, Ambassador of Greece to the United States, and the Consul General of Greece in Los Angeles, Ioannis Stamatekos, for their support and collaboration. I would also like to acknowledge the role that the Honorary Consul General of Cyprus, Andreas Kyprianidis, has played in promoting Greek language in the Southern California region. Since its foundation, our center has placed Greek language and letters at the forefront of its activities. Our Greek Book Club offers the opportunity to members of our communities, local and international, to discuss with Greek authors about their work. We organize many lectures that focus on Greek literary works, including our annual lecture on National Poetry Month. Kouvenda, a monthly conversation forum, gathers members of the community in lively discussions in Greek about topics of Hellenic interest. Our center is also serving as an Ellinomathia examination center, administering exams for the Certificate of Attainment in Modern Greek in collaboration with the Center for Greek Language in Thessaloniki. The core, however, of our endeavors is language teaching. In collaboration with our close partners at UCLA, the Department of Classics, we have offered courses in Modern Greek that extend from the elementary to the advanced level, as well as specialized courses that teach Greek for research purposes. These courses build on a strong tradition in the teaching of ancient Greek at UCLA. They're complemented by a wide selection of offerings in Greek literature, art, culture, and history, from antiquity through Byzantium and up to the modern period. We are grateful for the warm embrace of these endeavors by our community. Therefore, we can think of no topic more suitable to commemorate International Greek Language Day than a lecture that brings together Greek language education and heritage communities. Our guide to this topic will be Dr. Themistoklis Aravossitas, a pioneering scholar in Greek language heritage education. Before turning over the program to our speaker, I would like to welcome the Ambassador of Greece and a friend of the center, Alexandra Papadopoulou, who will offer a few thoughts on the importance of Greek language and of this celebration. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zenios, and good morning or good afternoon to everybody, wherever you happen to be at this moment. I'm very happy to be joining once again the UCLA Stavros Niarchos Foundation Center for the Study of Hellenic Culture. And I thank Dr. Sharon Gerstel and Dr. Simos Zenios for this continuous, productive, and thought-provoking collaboration. As you know, this event is in honor of International Greek Language Day, which is February 9th, a date designated in 2017. While a new institution, the International Greek Language Day has already become a widely celebrated tradition across the world. It aims to highlight the definitive global role that the Greek language has played throughout its 4,000 years of history. The Greek language has played a foundation role in European culture and more broadly in Western civilization, not only in scientific terms and usage, but also as a language that introduced new concepts and ideas which define our world today, ideas such as democracy, philosophy, and so many others. In medicine alone, 80% of scientific terms have a Greek root. It is thus no surprise that many refer to Greek as the mother of Western languages. Today, the modern Greek language is spoken by nearly 14 million people in Greece, Cyprus, Albania, Italy, Turkey, as well as by the Greek diaspora in all continents. This geographic allotment, if you will, of the Greek diaspora and the learning of the Greek language by its members have their own unique challenges that come with what is called a heritage language, that is language learned by children at home with insufficient input from the broader social environment. The Greek language for diaspora Greeks or friends of Greek is much more than a means of communication. On the one hand, it helps create a sense of community and cultural identity. It helps preserve traditions and histories, and helps build communal bonds. On the other hand, it helps create active citizens and well-rounded members of modern, open, and multicultural societies. Consequently, if we want to preserve this important tool and promote the knowledge of Greek in the diaspora, as well as pursue this broader understanding of heritage language learning, we must continuously examine new and innovative ways to teach it. We must examine and promote systematic approaches, wide-ranging policies, and coordinated efforts among all interested parties and partners involved in this venture. We're fortunate today to have Dr. Themistoklis Aravossitas, a leading expert in the field of Greek heritage language learning, to guide us through this exciting topic so that we too can do our part. Dr. Aravossitas will discuss key concepts of heritage language education, ranging from new technologies to collaborations between schools, universities, and community partners. I'm very fortunate to have known Dr. Aravossitas for quite a few years, since the times I was Consul General in Toronto, and I have first-hand knowledge of his dedication, knowledge, deep knowledge, and commitment to what he does. So I leave you to here so that Dr. Aravossitas can lead us into these fascinating and vital issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador, for these thoughtful and very rich remarks. Before I introduce our speakers, some housekeeping details. Please keep your microphones muted for the duration of the lecture. After the end of the lecture, we will open the screen for a Q&A session, and you can ask questions at that time either by typing them in the chat or by using the raise the hand icon, which can be found under the reactions tab at the bottom right of your screen. Also, please stay with us at the end of the Q&A, when we will screen a short video created by the Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs in celebration of International Greek Language Day. Now, on to our main event. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Themistoklis Aravossitas. Dr. Aravossitas teaches modern Greek language and culture at York University and in the Center for European Studies at the University of Toronto. He completed his PhD at the Department of Curriculum, Teaching and Learning and the Knowledge Media Design Institute at the University of Toronto, specializing in teaching students with diverse linguistic and cultural backgrounds. With a government grant from the Social Science and Humanities Research Council of Canada, he conducted a 2-year postdoctoral research program at the Department of Elementary Education and the Linguistics Laboratory of the University of the Aegean. There, he designed GreekLanguage.ca, an online environment for the promotion and support of Greek language education in the diaspora under the supervision of Professor Eleni Skurtu. In the framework of the Greek Diaspora Fellowship Program, he received a grant from the Stavros Niarchos Foundation to continue his collaboration with the University of the Aegean by designing the first summer school for Greek expatriates. The school will run these main roads. He's also designing teacher training programs in relation to the teaching of Greek as a heritage language. He has published widely in language education, and I will only mention here his co-edited volumes: Rethinking Heritage Language Education from Cambridge University Press in 2014, Handbook of Research and Practice in Heritage Language Education from Springer in 2017, Interdisciplinary Research Approaches to Multilingual Education by Routledge in 2018, Issues of Language Diversity in Education, published in Greek by Gutenberg University Press in 2019, and the most recent, Language Diversity in Greece, Local Challenges with International Implications by Springer in 2020. The title of Dr. Aravossitas' lecture is Greek Language Education in North America, New Directions and Challenges. Dr. Aravossitas, the screen and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Since we are here joining from different regions, different parts of the world, I would say Χαίρετε, which I believe covers all time zones, right? So Χαίρετε to everyone. I'm excited, I'm glad, I'm happy for this great meeting. I would like to thank personally the ambassador, the Honorable Ambassador Alexandra Papadopoulou, whom I had the privilege also to work with when she was the Consul General here in Toronto, in Canada. And also would like to thank the Consul General of Greece in Los Angeles, Mr. Ioannis Stamatekos, and also my colleague, Dr. Simos Zenios from the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Center for the Study of Culture at the UCLA for having this great opportunity, for giving me this great opportunity to share with you some of my findings that come both from my practice in the classroom and from my research, mainly in heritage language education, in how we teach Greek in the diaspora, in the communities of diasporic communities throughout the world. The presentation has technically 3 parts. I say 4, but it's technically 3 parts. The first part will be an introduction to the field of Greek language education. I understand that everyone who joins here today joins from not only from a different part of the world, but also with different ideas, different positions about what Greek language education is or should be, and different roles. Some of us are teachers, are learners, others are parents, grandparents, community leaders. We have this introduction and opportunity to see what really is involved in Greek language education. Then may I say that the main course of today's presentation will be a case study about how Greek language education works in Canada. We believe that Canada is a very interesting case study because there are things that happen in the last 10 years, at least, that are community-based incentives and innovations and projects that we need to discuss. And hopefully this will lead us to the third stage, the discussion part, when we can share some recommendations and some ideas as we are all thinking, how do we plan ahead? Now, when we talk about Greek language education in the diaspora, as you see here from this slide, there's so many terms and many more that interact. There are many fields that they study heritage languages, many fields that study diaspora. But when we talk about teaching the Greek language in the diaspora, allow me to tell you a story about how I came to do what I'm doing now. Like, I started my career in Athens, in Pankrati, as you can see here from the picture below, as an elementary school teacher working for the public school system. And at the time, I taught the Greek language, of course, to native learners as their first language, but also we had then in the 90s, we had the influx of immigrant children who learned Greek language as a second language. And in the same classroom we were teaching, I remember at the same time, students for whom Greek was their language at home, their only the mother tongue, and then students who had just started to learn the language. So these are the two settings of Greek language that I was familiarized with while I was in Greece. Then when I moved to Canada, I started teaching, in some cases, Canadians who had no Greek background, and they wanted me to teach them Greek. So they were learning it as a foreign language, and that was not difficult for me to teach because they all start from the same level. They have to learn the alphabet, the syllables, the words, and so on. I could have easily groups with many people starting from the same level. But when I was seconded to the schools of the community here in Toronto, and I started teaching the language as a heritage language, I have to say that I needed help. I realized that this is a group of learners that is much more complicated than I thought, and I was not prepared for my initial teacher education to serve this particular group of learners. Then, of course, I continued my studies. I went to the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education at the University of Toronto. I had the pleasure to work with Jim Cummins and others. Jim Cummins is known in the community of bilingual education, and SLE teachers, people who work with second language education all over the world, as one of the pioneers of heritage language education. And it's there at OISE, at the University of Toronto, when I start making connections between my practical reality as a teacher in the classroom and I as an administrator, because eventually I became the director of education at the Greek community of Toronto, and I had also the responsibility of running many different programs. So I started to see what is known in the field, not just with Greek language education, but with heritage language education. And when we talk about heritage language education, there are many different definitions. I like to use the word heritage to explain a little bit what it means to be a heritage language learner. And a heritage language learner is a learner whose learning process might start at home from grandparents or caregivers who know the community language, the heritage language, and then it gets interrupted because some of the learners do not continue to learn the language when they go to their day schools. Then probably they find a program, they join the program for a few years, then they discontinue. Of course, there are different cases where we have big Greek communities, concentrated good schools. I mean, schools that they're day schools. We have schools that they offer programs every Saturday for many years. And those students learners are lucky because in their, we know all that we're talking about North America. We know how spread Greek communities are. There's Greek everywhere, the Greek families everywhere. What happens to them when they want to teach their languages to their children? So there are many terms that explain the particularities of heritage language education, many theories. For instance, all educators know that usually the classrooms where heritage language learners are served, particularly in tertiary education in the universities, are mixed classrooms. And what that means when you have to teach at the same time students for whom the language is part of their identity and students who are just learning the language from scratch because they have their own motives, their own motivation for it. Are there specifically designed programs for both groups, or do we teach them all together? And then issues about the teachers and the educators, not only if those people are able to teach the language, but how are they employed? What is the system that supports them? Who invests on their professional development, and what is their career to be if they invest on learning how to teach the Greek language in the diaspora? There are many issues, and of course, the participation of parents is a very important, and also how the community organizes schools and programs. I will just say we are all teachers and learners of the Greek language because we use the Greek language, because we are communicating in the Greek language, and since we are communicating, people are learning Greek words from us. It could be our children, our grandchildren, our friends. We are all teachers and learners, and the community all together, the communities are learning and teaching the languages. That's my approach. Now, one thing before I get into the main course, into the case study of Canada, is how Greek language education is, and heritage language education is connected to what we call ethno-linguistic vitality. The preservation, the maintenance of culture and language. The communities who are the communities, sorry, that are in North America, Greek communities. We know that we have Greek communities 5, 6 generations. In Canada, maybe up to the 3rd generation, 4th generation. But those communities want to preserve the language and the culture. Now, there are a couple of models, actually many models, that measure how well communities do it, what are the factors, how do they have to think when they want to strategize about planning about the future of the communities. And we see that in all models, there's several, everywhere is mentioned that we have demographic factors, we have factors such as the status of the community and the language. And then we have what we call institutional support. This is the key term for today's presentation, institutional support. Institutional support does not necessarily mean that this is to be expected from the state. The host country, like I say, Greece or United States of America or Canada, it's not necessarily institutional support provided only by states or educational authorities. It can be provided through the community, and that's what we are going to see today. I wanted to show you first a first table about the situation with Greek language in the United States. Now, Greek is among the 30 most common spoken languages, but as we see here on this table, from the 1980 to 2019, we have a change, what we call language shift. We have fewer people who speak the Greek language, and that is estimated almost 34% between the years 1980 2019, and the last 20 years only 13%. This is a number that we have to keep in mind when we are going to see also the situation in Canada. We can compare and we can look into more details in the Canadian case, where we have more data regarding also the generations, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd generation, and what happens. Now, Greek study, case study, Greek heritage language education in Canada. This is the latest stats that I put together just for this presentation. We can see that the Greek presence, the Greek population in Canada, steadily increases between 1951 and 2021. Every 10 years, when we have the census of population, people go to vote, and also people say that claim that they are of Greek heritage, they claim Greek ethnicity, and these numbers, I have to stress that, do not necessarily reflect the exact number of the Greek community members in Canada, because not all of them answer those questions when they go to fill out the forms of census. However, this picture is a true picture that shows that the Greek community is growing. And if you look at the on the right side, the columns here, you will see that we have the blue line here that shows the number of Greeks, the numbers of the Greek community members in 2006, and then every 5 years. What you will notice is that we have, in 2016, we have more, we have an increase that is a kind of significant increase that tells us a lot about the newcomers and the brain drain phenomenon, how many Greeks, particularly Greeks who came from families that used to be immigrants in the United States and Canada and had to return to Greece, how their children or grandchildren went back to North America for studies during the years of the economic crisis, the problems that Greece faced in the previous decade. But more importantly is I want you to see next to the blue column here, you see how many people are Greeks in Canada, how many of them speak the Greek language at home, how many of them claim that this is their mother tongue and that they use it at home. It's the number, as you see, this is our retention rate. You see that this is dropping. You see that it's dropping from 2006 to 2021. We have fewer than 100,000 people who are saying that they use the Greek language. And if we look onto the last column here, you will see that in 2006, there were only 24,000 almost Greek Canadians who claimed that they're members of the third generation. And now in 2021, the number is growing, and soon the third generation will be the one that will represent most of the Canadians. What happens when first generation naturally disappears, and then the second, the third generation, the fourth generation takes over? We've had this happening in the United States, in other parts of the Greek diaspora. Now this is happening in Canada. The third generation is the one which we see them in schools, we see them in the community everywhere. What is happening with our retention rates? We were very glad when we saw this report in 2011, and we saw then that the Greek language has a very good retention rate between 1981 and 2006. So that means that from 100 women, let's say, who spoke the Greek language in 1921, 62 cases, the language, like 62%, they passed the language to the next generation, to their children, and 26% to the grandchildren. That shows that, well, only 1/4 of Greek women 1981 managed to pass this on to their grandchildren. I say women because that's what was a part of the study. And what we see is that this 26% is second only to the Punjabi. So that means that the Greek language was doing really well in terms of retention, but that's not anymore the case. We have actually dropped now to the 16th place with, you can see here, the Greek language is, the retention rate is a little bit above 80%, but you see that the blue line here shows full retention and the red line shows partly retention. So that means that this percentage, 50% of Greek speakers in Canada, they admit that they speak the language well, while another 30% so and so. And here we see again the numbers, 2011, 2016. Here is the distribution by the generations. From the Greek speakers in 2011, only 6,000 were part of the third generation, the majority part of the first. So this is an idea, this is to give you an idea about the phenomenon of language shift that also has been affecting the Greek community as it does with all other communities. Of course, the Greek community in Canada performs better than other relevant communities because when I say relevant communities, I'm talking about communities that came from Europe, perhaps at the same time in the 50s, 60s, and 70s by mass to the United States or to Canada. And the Portuguese, the Polish, the Italian, the German, Ukrainian, Dutch are not doing as well as we do, but there are other groups that are doing a lot better. Now, the situation in Canada, for those who are not familiar with the Canadian case, Canada, generally speaking, does very well in education, even though we don't have a national education system here. And all the international PISA, the comparisons between how people are doing education in different countries, shows that Canada is one of the leading countries in many areas of education, particularly very good in how first-generation immigrants and their children are doing. Many things have changed in Canadian policy since the 1970s, when they first introduced the term heritage languages, until today. We don't have the time for this particular case to discuss how Canada has changed the policies regarding heritage language education, but I have to tell you that pretty much what happened in the 1980s and the 1990s, the decision of the country to offer programs for immigrant communities to preserve their languages for 2.5 hours weekly across the land from the level of JK until the 8th grade. There are programs available to learners of all community languages in Canada for free to learn the language on a Saturday or after the day school system. But this hasn't changed much over the last 40 years. This was established, international language programs were established in the 1980s, and we continue with those programs until today. However, many things have changed in regards to what communities are doing, and that's what we're going to see. Why we picked Canada today as the case study is because what is happening here in terms of Greek language education can be explored and examined as a community-based research projects. Those projects are taking place over the last 10 years, and I will refer to 5 of them very briefly. And I will show you how those collaborative projects that included, as the ambassador said earlier, participation and collaboration between universities, community groups, and governments, how it produced specific results and addressed challenges of heritage language education. This model of community-based research, basically what it means is that we go through a phase of understanding the community, understanding the assets that the community has, and the capacity to teach the language or to address any problem that is related to how we teach the language. And then when we conduct the research with the collaboration of the academia, then we go back to the community and see if we can apply some changes, some solutions. Then we do again an assessment, and then this cycle continues. This is the process that is followed. And quickly, I will say the 5 projects that I will refer to you. The first one is a project that focuses on the community at large, mapping what Greek language in Canada really means, what it involves, what it includes, who are the teachers, who are the learners, who is included, how many they are, how many schools do we have. Based on the findings of the first study, we have a second study that focuses the teachers and their professional development needs. Then a third study that focuses on learners and how learners are placed in the classrooms, are placed in heritage language education, and what do they have to say about it. And then we focus on newcomers that offered some solutions to Greek language education some years ago and continue to do so. And then the last study is focusing on online learning and the messages that we got from COVID, from the pandemic, and may I say, not very positive if we're going to see what the students have to say about their experience during the COVID, the pandemic measures that had a very bad affected in a bad way, in a negative way, education at large, but also Greek language education. So the first study, we called it was the study, The Hidden Schools, and I kind of made a parallel between the Krυφά σχολεία from a topic that Greeks like to talk about and disagree about, whether there were hidden schools, there were Krυφά σχολεία during, and before the Greek Revolution, but I said, we don't have to just look always in the history. Look at our learners here. This is a picture from Greek community, and this is a class that actually on a Saturday or on a Sunday, it's taking place on the basement of the community center. That's why I call this the hidden schools. The hidden schools because they're schools. They're schools where a second language is taught. Very important schools. The day schools struggle to keep students studying, and the communities manage to bring students an extra day in school. So I said they deserve, whoever is in this field, teachers, learners, administrators, they deserve to be highlighted and showcased as those who are part of a system that is there, but we haven't really studied. And we studied, and we found that almost 10 years ago, between 9,000 and 10,000 learners of Greek language were registered in different schools and programs across Canada. Well, this number, of course, does not include those who had tutors or did online programs, only those who were registered in every type of program. But this is a very important number because now we're starting a new study and we will compare with 10 years before. And we see if we are losing students, where and why. And we know that we have almost 300 people who teach the Greek language across Canada. There are 70 organizations, and there are five universities with modern Greek studies programs. Now, I will not give you too many details about the study because there is not enough time, but characteristically, you can see one of the findings here that shows us that when students, when heritage learners enter their heritage language education in the Greek community at large, we see that their numbers are very good in the early years until grade 1. They reach that, and then slowly after grade 2, we see them leaving Greek school, and then we see a huge gap like grade 7 and 8. So as day school becomes harder and harder, as students have to do other things because they have sports and they have other activities, they drop out of Greek school. And then what is happening? We need to, and we actually did, we contacted the communities and said, we have to do something here, grade 4. We have to do something here after grade 2. We saw where we have gaps. And also we identified the schools and the programs, which programs are community-based, which are board-based, which are very small. And when we say very small, we're talking about schools and programs with fewer than 50 students and probably with 1 or 2 teachers that we call them endangered schools and programs that might close, and many of them did during the pandemic and never opened up again. So we have to look at them exactly the same way as we look into endangered species. Where are they? We have to protect them. And we see also that Greek language education generally is affordable. Generally, most people spend between 2.5 to 5 hours studying the Greek language. So we really went deeply into seeing, for instance, that most Greek language programs in Canada, again, I'm not referring to the day schools that we have in Montreal or in Toronto. I'm talking about the other programs, community-based programs throughout the country, mostly operated on Saturday. And what happens if the family has other things in the summer, then they don't go to Greek school, and then we have other issues that they're reported. If you see here, we asked administrators, teachers, parents, and students, what are your issues? And usually like the answers were attendance, textbooks relevance, lack of qualified teachers, student retention, and so on. So we heard them, and then what we did, we started investigating deeply one after the other, or the challenge areas that were brought up, highlighted through the first study. When we looked into the professional development needs and employment issues of Greek language educators, we saw that they have different needs, because some of them are born in Greece, some of them are born outside Greece, some of them have university education and studies in pedagogy, some not. So when we looked onto their diverse needs, we took those needs to, I will refer later to this, to an organization in Canada, a community-based institution, a foundation called Hellenic Heritage Foundation that funds community projects. And we said to them, let's do something on actually, this was a collaboration with also many people from the community and community leaders. We need to hear you. We need to know what you need for your teachers. And the Hellenic Heritage Foundation created something that we're going to show you later on in the last couple of minutes. Now, the third study had to do with Greek language learners in mixed classrooms. And the problem here is that the students, as I said, some of them are competing with students who have background in Greek, others don't have the background in Greek. And in the university, we try to look into the needs of both groups and interview them and see why they're learning Greek. And we saw that 90% of them want to learn their language and culture, a very big percentage, 84%, because they want to visit Greece. Let's hear them a little bit.
So I guess my reason for taking this Greek course in the first semester was so I could try and continue developing my knowledge of the Greek language. You know, as someone who comes from a Greek background, I really wanted to be able to communicate better with, my family in Greece, my family here that speaks primarily Greek, just so I can kind of bridge the two generations and kind of just keep that culture going.
For me, I do not come from a Greek background, but I took this course because I was initially interested in mythology, and so learning the Greek language and culture was just a natural extension. I really found it enjoyable, and I would recommend it to people like me who do not come from a Greek background.
So I took it to help with communicating with my family from here and Greece, and especially because I want to stay in Greece for a couple months. So my family wants me to stay there abroad. So I was thinking in the summertime to do that. Hopefully I can get more fluent and be able to communicate with everyone.
Who continues? I'm so sorry. Okay. So I wanted to take Greek to get more in touch with my roots and learn my heritage language, which I didn't learn at home. And so through taking modern Greek last semester and this semester, it's been an amazing experience of me being able to speak to my grandparents in Greek, and it makes them happy, and I'm really good at it, and it's great because I'm really motivated to keep learning Greek.
So you heard them. These are different types of students, different motivations, different reasons. You heard one of the students who is not of Greek background to say that mythology that she took in their early years in schooling led her to Greek at the university, modern Greek, and then she stayed, she enjoyed it, she became very good at it. And then also in the same classroom, we had heritage learners that had different thing in their mind when they were starting learning Greek, is how to communicate with Papua New Guinea. But both of those groups together, there's need to be clarification and different goals and different curricula in some cases. We have published this study. And also another study about the new Greek migration in Canada. This was a study that we conducted because we wanted to see how this wave of newcomers that we saw happen mostly between 2012 and 2016, those 4 years. We don't know exactly how many, but there were many Greek newcomers who came to Canada. We estimate that the number is at least 5,000 to 10,000 because we see the stats that showing that between 2011 to 2016 we have an increase. But what we saw is that the newcomers came to Canada to stay, and also many of them participated in Greek language education. Actually, at one point in 2015, 2016, 50% of teachers across Canada in Greek language teachers were newcomers. You can imagine what the community would have done without them. So the brain drain phenomenon in Greece became drain gain phenomenon for our communities. This is something that we have to recognize and to see how well they did. So we saw that the newcomers were highly educated, and we saw many things that we shared also. We went to a conference in Berlin and talked about the Canadian experience of newcomers. And I don't want to give you too many details, but if you want to discuss later on, we can talk about all the stats that came out. They're very interesting. We asked them questions like, how do you think the Greeks, the previous generations, are doing in Canada in preserving the Greek language and culture? Which Greek organizations and institutions welcome you? Which ones you feel closer to? And we found out that many of them, of the newcomers, they wanted to be part of the Greek schools because they thought that this is a great way of preparing their kids for mainstream school, for mainstream education. So they are part of the Greek school now. The last study, and may I say the most eye-opening one, is what happened during the pandemic. What happened during the pandemic, we all understand. If we have children, if we are teachers, we know that those 3 years the 3 academic years, 2019, from 2019 to 2022, 3 school years were kind of interrupted, and we had this phenomenon that called anthropos, the 2 Greek words anthropos and pos. That's what happened. And in education, look at this picture. These are the classrooms during pandemic. And early in the first year of the pandemic, there were already studies saying that students were behind in men's school, in math, in reading, in everything. And we see this generation now in universities, they're struggling. But why? What is happening? Why? We studied this, and we, first of all, had communication with the Ministry of Education in Ontario, where we saw that during the pandemic, many community groups that wanted to offer, with all precautions, in-person schooling, they couldn't even find schools to be ready to them. And then when we asked the students, and all those answers came back to us, and we were looking at them, and they're telling us they were struggling. They're telling us about how they didn't really learn a lot, and how their experience changed, and how important to them is to be in the classroom after all. Exhausted, confused, mental health issues, a lot of stress, physical health issues, parents not feeling well, the whole family, chaotic situation. Some students are saying it was not the university, it was not the studies that I have dreamed of. And all those messages have to do with online education, because it means that we were not really ready, even though the students were very, very capable of using those technologies, and teachers are now, more they're prepared to use those technologies, but the whole system didn't work really well. Why? And we have also those findings that are to be published this year, and we will see, in details what they're telling us. And now let's go to the final stage of the projects that were done to address the challenges that I said. University community projects, starting with the heart of Greek language education in Canada. Professor Bouchard leads there since 1973, the modern Greek studies. What we have in Montreal, in Quebec, is not only a very successful system of trilingual day schools operated by the Greek community, but we also have McGill University, in collaboration with the community, creating a Greek teacher education course, studies, where someone who wants to be a teacher in mainstream education becomes an English teacher, let's say. They can also at the same time learn how to become Greek teachers by taking courses. This is a program that is there ready to accommodate the needs to feed the schools of the Greek community in Quebec, in Montreal, with teachers from the diaspora. This was done in Quebec, and then in Ontario, we had other similar projects. I will refer to the project that is called Effective Teaching And the Hellenic Heritage Foundation did in Ontario to help students, teachers who came from Greece to Canada, to understand a little bit how the Canadian education system works, how languages are taught, and in Canada. Canada has expertise in bilingual education because we're a country that has 2 official languages. So all those, all the expertise was transmitted to the Greek language educators through this program, Effective Teaching, that the Hellenic Heritage Foundation made it available to all Greek language teachers for free. And this is online, and it still goes on every year. Students, like teachers all over Canada who want to teach Greek, they can take this course and they pay nothing because it's covered by the Hellenic Heritage Foundation. And other things like GreekLanguage.ca, the portal that was actually very good at the timing. We created the portal at the time when the pandemic closed everyone in the home, and everybody could find online resources about Greek language. Last week, someone contacted us through the portal and said, I live in Northwestern Territories in Yukon. I want to learn Greek. Where can I find a school near me? And now she's taking Greek through the Greek school in one of the Greek schools that we have in Edmonton, online, of course. But this is how we address those things. And here is the portal. You can see that this is something that we created, again, funded by the Hellenic Heritage Foundation, so that we can find all the programs, the events, the organization, and to gather many resources that Greek language teachers can find and use in their teaching. And this is the environment of the portal. If you want to find events, if you want to see organizations, and the portal is fed by students of the university. Part of their project is to develop content and give us information about different organizations in Canada. And those organizations are different organizations than the ones that they existed 30 or 40 years ago. Now we have some professional groups. If a young Greek Canadian wants to become a lawyer, they can contact the Hellenic Canadian Lawyers Association. And here we can find information about how they can help them to understand what it takes to become a lawyer in Canada. And those groups and resources, there are many, there are videos, there are news from schools. Going to the recommendations, I will say that there are recommendations from this experience that we have gathered in Canada for governments, for universities, and for communities, for learners, and for parents. I will just say one recommendation for each group. For the students and learners, I will say it's never late to start learning Greek. You can choose your program. There is a plethora of programs available. If you're lucky to live in New York, Chicago, in places in Toronto, in Montreal, and other places where we have day schools, where we have organized communities with the church and other organizations and institutions offer programs for many years. They know what they're doing. Go there. If you don't, you can find programs online, but find the program. It's never late, and practice it with your environment if you can, or even online. There are even groups on social media that they're practicing speaking Greek. Now, for the teachers, we understand your concerns. We understand that it's really hard to invest on professional development when you're not sure about your future, when you're not sure about having secure jobs. And this is something that we have to work together with the communities. Make sure that we can find those professional teachers or those gifted individuals, even though they're not teachers, who can teach really well, they know the language. Let's train them. Let's create for them opportunities to grow and to make a successful career. And then also to administrators, be flexible when you offer programs. Listen to your parents. Listen to what the community needs. Maybe they don't need exactly what you're offering. Maybe they need something, let's say, in March break, in the summer. Maybe they cannot keep up going to Greek school during the year with so many other things. Let's listen to them and let's try to see, can even for 1-2 hours per week, we can serve them by combining, we say, hybrid programs, a little bit online, a little bit in person, with a lot of cultural and community content. For the community, I would say, it's not just about doing Greek schooling and organizing programs, also events where the Greek language is taught, and encourage community members to participate in the census every few years to say, yes, we are Greek, yes, this is our language, this is our community. Numbers are important. I call for synergies. I ask you to work with communities, to work with universities. This is a project that we did with the University of Crete more than 10 years ago, when we had no Zoom but Skype, and students from the Greek diaspora through this program that was administered by the University of Crete, Professor Michalis Damanakis and his team, and then professors from the University of the Aegean and other parts of the Greek universities. We had this collaboration between classes from different parts of the Greek diaspora, Toronto with Australia, Adelaide, Melbourne with Germany, with London, with all those different collaborations that proved that how well we communicate and we work together even online. The Heritage Greece program and programs that send every year students to Greece were interrupted during the pandemic. Let's do it again. I will say that the Greek Diaspora Fellowship Program of the Stavros Niarchos Foundation responded to the phenomenon of brain drain by sending in 4 years 123 professors from the Greek diaspora back to Greece to work and establish collaboration with universities. May I say that with this opportunity, and I went to Rhodes and I worked with the Department of Education there, and we're happy that we designed for the first time one program that is particularly tailored to the needs of heritage learners. The idea is that wherever there is a Greek university that has a teachers academy that prepares teachers, then they should have a summer school offering opportunity to students who go to Greece just for holidays, also to learn Greek at the same time and learn about their culture and heritage. I will close my presentation with a personal message from one of my students, and this student came to learn Greek because she wanted to communicate with her father, who was really far, who was not part of the family, and Greek-speaking father. And she came to university. Thank you for encouraging me not to give up. She didn't thank me for helping her to learn Greek. Thank me for encouraging me not to give up. To give up what? Her identity. Our schools are probably part-time, many of them. The identity of our learners is not. I will stop here. Thank you very much. And I hope we can have a discussion and talk about some of the things that I brought. Thank you.
So I would like to invite you to join me in a round of virtual loud applause for Dr. Aravossitas for this wonderful lecture. As I said at the beginning, before we bring this event to a close, I would like to share with you, we would like to share with you a brief video created by the Hellenic Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the occasion of International Greek Language Day. In this video, you will see 23 young people from around the world who attend Greek schools and Greek language programs, reciting verses by some of the most prominent Greek poets and authors. The video also includes greeting messages by the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Andreas Katsaniotis, and the Secretary General for Greeks Abroad and Public Diplomacy, Professor John Chrysoulakis.
Για κοιτάξτε πόσο θαυμάσιο πράγμα είναι να λογαριάζει κανείς πως από την εποχή που μίλησε ο Όμηρος ως τα σήμερα μιλούμε, ανασένουμε και τραγουδούμε με την ίδια γλώσσα. Αληθή τα λόγια του σπουδαίου μας εφέρει. Από τις πολύχρησες Μικίνες και τη γραμμική Β, το λόγο του Ομήρου και τους μεγάλους τραγικούς μέχρι σήμερα την εποχή της πληροφορίας, της ψηφιακής τεχνολογίας και των κοινωνικών μέσων, η ελληνική γλώσσα, ζωντανή και ενεργή, παράγει ιστορία, πολιτισμό και επιστήμη. Κατά το μακρύνο ταξίδι της, η γλώσσα μας υπήρξε παρούσα όταν οι Ευαγγελιστές διακήρυσαν στα ελληνικά τον ερχομό του Χριστού στον κόσμο. Όταν η μακρινή Οκεανία έπαιρνε το όνομά της από τον Τιτάνα, γιο του ουρανού και της γέας. Ήταν παρούσα και όταν τα στοιχεία του Αλεξανδρινού Ευκλήδη μεταφράζονταν ως το πρώτο δυτικό βιβλίο στα Κινέζικα, αλλά και όταν η ελληνική φωνή γινόταν φόου. Είναι η ελληνική λοιπόν μια γλώσσα οικουμενική, που ακολούθησε δρόμο συνθετικό και γόνιμο και πορεύεται διαρκώς εμπλουτιζόμενη στον σύγχρονο κόσμο. Ιατρική αλλά και θεολογία, τεχνολογία αλλά και φιλοσοφία. Όλοι οι καρποί της ανθρώπινης διανόησης χωρούν εντός της. Είναι η γλώσσα μας εκείνη η νοητή γραμμή που ενώνει τη μακραίωνη ελληνική σκέψη με τους προβληματισμούς του σήμερα. Είναι το κλειδί για την κατανόηση του σύγχρονου κόσμου. Είναι ένα παγκόσμιο αγαθό υψηλής πολιτιστικής αξίας που ανήκει σε όλους μας. Και εμείς, προνομιούχοι ως κοινωνίες μιας γλώσσας με αξιοθαύμαστη διαχρονικότητα και παγκόσμια ηχό. Έλληνες του εξωτερικού, φίλοι της Ελλάδας σε κάθε γωνιά της γης. Η γλώσσα μας είναι ο κόσμος μας. Και εμείς, φύλακες και υπερήφανοι προστάτες του, αποφασισμένοι να συνεχίσουμε να μιλάμε, να σκεπτόμαστε, αλλά και ναι, να ονειρευόμαστε στα ελληνικά.
Πολλά φοβερά τρομερά, θρέφει τέρατα γη, μα το φρόνημα του άντρα που είναι σε τολμή αξεπέραστο. Ποιος μπορεί να το πει?
Κριτητής γέες στη μέσο, ένι είναι ο πιπόντο, καλή και πίερα περίδητος.
Ιστιονός άριστος αμήνεστε περιπάτης.
Εφήμερη. Τι είναι κανείς και τι δεν είναι? Όνειρο σκιάς είναι ο άνθρωπος.
Πολλά τα δεινά που δεν ανθρώπου δυνατόν πέλη.
Στέκονται και αναδεύονται, αληθινά σαν να είναι και έχουν μέσα τους ψυχή. Τι υπερμαχό στρατηγό τα νικητήρια ως λυτρωτήσα των δεινών ευχαριστήρια.
Και όπου κατέχει να μιλεί με γνώση και με τρόπο, κάνει και κλαίσει να γελούν τα μάτια των ανθρώπων.
Όποιος ελεύθερα συλλογάται καλά.
Όσοι το χαλκαίον χέρι βαρύ του φόβου εθάνουν. Σηκών μιας ας έχωση. Θέλει αρετή και τολμή η ελευθερία.
Απ' τα κόκαλα βγαλμένη των Ελλήνων τα ιερά και σαν πρώτα αντριωμένη χαίρε, ο χαίρε ελευθεριά.
Αλλά, Θεά, δεν μπορώ να ακούσω τη φωνή σου και στείς εγώ του ελληνικού κόσμου να τη χαρίσω.
Μα ποιοι σαν τούτοι δεν γνώριζε κανείς, μήτε πια η πατρίς του μες στο Μέγα Πανελλήνιο.
Αυτή η ορθότης πιθανόν είναι η αιτία της μορφής.
Μία στραβή η ζωή μας, μα προλαβαίνουνε.
Άνεμος φυσιολογικός, από μακρά σταθμένος, με την καλή είναι εμβολία των κάμπων ζαλισμένων.
Όνειρο ανάγλυφο, θα έρθω κοντά σου κατακορύφως.
Κάποτε θα ανταμώσουμε στους λόγους του ήλιου, μην ξεχνάς, περπάτα.
Τα μάτια σου ζουνε μια θάλασσα, θυμάμαι.
Και στα σπαλάθια της ερήμου, μία μάνα φώναξε παιδί μου. Ας μην το κρύβουμε, διψάμε για ουρανό.
Τάχα ότι επισκευάζει μια παράληψη παλιά, να γίνει σαν καινούρια, σου παράγγειλο φιλοπαίγμων μύθος. Η γλώσσα μου έδωσαν ελληνική, το σπίτι φτωχικό στις αμμούδιες στο μύρου. Μονάχη εγνιά η γλώσσα μου στις αμμούδιες στο μύρου.
Κι αν κάπου ανάμεσα στους γαλάζιους διαδρόμους συναντήσω αγγέλους θα τους μιλήσω ελληνικά. Με αυτούς τους στίχους, ο Νικηφόρος Βρετάκος εξυμνεί το ένθεο μεγαλείο της ελληνικής γλώσσας. Και τι πράγματι πιο αληθές. Η ελληνική γλώσσα, η μητέρα των γλωσσών, το θεμέλιο του σύγχρονου πολιτισμού, είναι μάνα και τροφός του ορθού λόγου, της φιλοσοφίας, της ποίησης. Το αποσώνει άλλωστε ο Οδυσσέας Ελίτης. Δεν πρέπει να λησμονεί κανείς ότι στο μάκρος 25 αιώνων δεν υπήρξε ούτε ένας, επαναλαμβάνω ούτε ένας, που να μην γράφτηκε ποίηση στην ελληνική γλώσσα. Για μας τους Έλληνες απανταχού, τα ελληνικά είναι και κάτι παραπάνω. Είναι η ταυτότητά μας, οι ρίζες μας, η άειλη πολιτιστική μας κληρονομιά, η αγκαλιά της μάνας Ελλάδας, η αγκαλιά της μάνας Ελλάδας στα παιδιά της και το σημείο αναφοράς μας σε κάθε γωνιά της γης, ο ακατάλητος δεσμός μας με την πατρίδα.
I think this was an ideal, inspiring conclusion to what was an inspiring, again, I repeat it, but because I think it was felt by everyone, presentation and discussion with Dr. Aravossitas. I want to thank Dr. Aravossitas once again for his generosity in thought and time. I want to thank our co-hosts, the Embassy of Greece to the United States and the Consulate General of Greece in Los Angeles. And of course, I want to thank you for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you in our future events, and I wish you all a good day.